folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show with my co-host David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers, who looks like he's right out of the Terminator movie tonight. Better be back.
Everybody's crazy about a sharp-dressed man.
Oh,
good evening and blessings to all of you. I am your humble co-host tonight, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Somebody knows me as David Null. I always appreciate you coming, and so does Robert. And we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And please stick around. We got an interesting story about turtle and deer. And it's the rainbow leaves in autumn, I think is the story. But anyway, so Robert, take it away.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Jedediah Smith tonight. Believe it or not, he was a very influential guy back in the day. As soon as I get this all taken care of, but he was best known. Let's see, we'll go right here for this picture. But he basically, next to Lewis and Clark, discovered the West. Not that he discovered it, was already there, but he was one of the first white men to get out and see it all. You know, and again, with the propaganda, because, you know, Jedediah Smith had read, as a young boy, had read Lewis and Clark's journals. So he got all influenced by that and said, that's the life for me. So anyway, that's who we're talking about tonight, Jedediah Smith. And he really opened up the West.
And one of the things is, not only did he see it, but he brought it back. That's the most important part of this.
And again, how did he bring it back?
Right, and that's the rest of the story.
Well, and that's the thing. We've been talking about these guys who became famous trappers and things like that. And there was several reasons that a mountain man or anybody back in the day would become famous, is because they either could tell stories or they won some important battles and they had somebody, or they did, write about it. It was all about who was with you and who was writing about it. Because if you couldn't write, somebody had to write it for you. And they would bring it back to the East Coast and they would, you know, spill it in them dime novels or nickel papers or whatever. And people were all, you know, oh my gosh, you know, look at this. Yeah, I got oh boy, I want to go west. Like we're going to be reviewing this book here. And it's The Prairie Traveler, the 1859 Handbook for Westbound Pioneers. Basically, it's a lot of propaganda because it's telling you how great it is, you know, how exciting it is. Meet the Indians, you know, see the sights, the mountains, the snow caps, the bears and the buffalo for miles and miles. And a young man could make a fortune out there, you know. Well, of course, that's going to tickle your trigger when you're thinking, well, you know, I'm not making any money here. Did you know that the United States had a great kind of a big depression era right around 1819 or so? 1819, which was about the time that if you were out east, where all, you know, the colonies were and stuff like that, and there was a depression, well, where are you going to get a job? There's nothing going on. And now there's this lucrative business of, you know, catching beaver out west, you know, getting hides and things like that, and buffalo and gold mining and blah, 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 blah. We could go on and on and on. And people were like, well, if you don't got nothing, it's a good place to go, right? So young men like Jedediah Smith headed out west. So let's find out.
And also, this was a time after the War of 1812 also. So
Yeah.
what this little dip was after the war. The any kind of trade with Britain was like, hey, yeah, right. We just fought a war with you, and they owed France a buku bunch of money
Yeah.
because they had borrowed it, to help with their efforts with the war. So, the United States was sort of in a slump, in that, and they were trying to recover after the war, basically, but
Yeah.
in that set up where the jobs and everything, the money was tight, and young man go west. Back to you,
Yeah.
Rob.
All right. So anyway, let's start out with his life. Now, being a smith and coming from, he was born in Jericho, which is now Brainbridge, Brainbridge County, or area or town. I don't know exactly. It must be in the town, Brainbridge town in Brome County, New York. Who knows? Maybe he's related to Lucky Stone. He's a smith too. He's been here. His relatives go all the way back to the Mayflower, so you never know. He may be a long lost relative, Lucky. I don't know if you know that, but he could be. Um, Thank you, Nina. She says, have a great show. Yes, thank you very much. If you didn't catch our show on Sunday night, go back over there and watch that show. It was great. If it's not up, she's going to put it all on Rumble because we said some extraordinary things on there. And if you missed it, like Scotty Boy, we were talking about having no pants. Anyway, there you go. Anyway, he was born January 6, 1799. The family, Jedediah, was the sixth of 14 children. Apparently, his mother and father were pretty busy. He was born to Jedediah Smith Sr. and Sally Strong Smith. His family was deeply religious and rooted in Methodist values, and raised with a strong sense of morality, discipline, and preservation. Of course, if you're into that religion stuff, you're going to have all of that. When he was a young boy, the Smith family moved westward, first to Erie County, Pennsylvania, and then eventually to Ohio, growing up on the edge of the American frontier. Okay, well, not that kind of frontier. That's the Rocky Mountain frontier. But anyway, here he is as a young man. At least they got portraits of him, Jedediah, let's call him Jed, okay? We kind of know him now. Jed developed an intense curiosity about wilderness exploration and the native cultures. Being in Ohio, in those early years, I bet you there was still a ton of Indians around, and who knows what he learned from them. At around 13, he read Lewis and Clark's journals, which profoundly inspired his future. So he got that whiff of adventure. I mean, can you imagine Lewis and Clark coming back and telling them all the amazing things that they seen, all the buffalo and all all these things. And there's Duggar. He likes the show too. Okay, so he didn't have a bunch of formal schooling. Jed was literate. He could write and read. He was highly intelligent. So he got himself a job working for a physician. Maybe he was going to be a doctor. Who knows? In Ohio when he was in his teens, which gave him, he picked up a few things. So he was pretty good with the medical stuff, which is going to prove in his life later to be very, very helpful. Anyway, by his early 20s, he was trained in survival, trapping, and natural navigation. I bet you he had an Indian buddy who taught him all that stuff. Well, in 1822, Smith joined the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, also known as Ashley's 100. Okay, led by William Henry Ashley. Well, there you go. I guess that explains the name. This was his way to get into the fur trade, and and he began one of the craziest legendary exploration careers ever. He quickly earned a reputation for his calmness under pressure, his devotion to God, and unyielding endurance. So this guy had all the attributes he needed to, you know, become that mountain man. Because when you're out there in the middle of nowhere and you got bears and you got Indians and you got to climb mountains and go through deserts and stuff, you need all the help you can get, especially if you got a body that's conditioned for it. As so many of you probably know, that if you don't have a body that's conditioned for them, climbing the mountains, you're not getting anywhere. Anyway,
and you also have to have the will.
Well, yeah,
because
exactly.
Even in that picture, look at the background, look at how rugged it is, and you go, I'm standing at the bottom of this mountain and saying, hey, I want to go that way. Really? How bad do you want to go?
Yeah. Isn't there a movie that says
stop at the bottom of the mountain and say to heck with it, where he was like, wonder what's on the other side, and he went.
It's kind of like Doc Brown saying to in the Back to the Future, and what's his name says to him, hey, what road we take? And he says, where we're going, there ain't no roads. And that's pretty much the fact of it. There wasn't no roads. You know how hard it is to travel? I mean, you've been out here before, out west, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even in the Appalachians, it's rough.
Yeah. But
out west, where the mountains are twice as tall and big and everything.
But here's the thing. Let's just discuss this for a second. And, when you're going out into the woods, let's say general woods, you get to the woods and you say, here's the path. But if you don't stay on the path, how hard is it to travel through the woods?
Oh, in my backyard, it's very difficult because there are vines. There are things down across your way, like limbs and trees. And, well, I'm going to go that way. And you come around a little turn and there's a big tree down in your way. And you got to climb over it or try to figure out a way under it. Or you have to figure out a way to go around it. I mean, and that's in my backyard. So, it's very difficult to travel without a path or some kind of trail. Now, that's key. Follow the animal trail.
Well, that's true. But how much longer would it take you to get to the same destination if you didn't have a trail?
Oh, golly, a long time.
That's right. A long time. And now
if
you're going to
actually, in some of those instances, like out there in the Rockies, if you didn't find the right pass over the mountain, you were stuck. Like, guess who? Like the Donner pack, that year where they got stuck in the snow. They were like trying to find the trail, and the trail master kind of left them, and they were stuck. And next thing you know, well,
yeah. Oh yeah, no, I agree. Elderberry says something about dragging the canoe up the river every day. Yeah, well, I'm sure the rivers were like the highways back then, because you could move a lot more freely going down a river or a stream or whatever than you could trying to tramp through the woods over a mountain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's a big thing. So anyway,
but also having walked a bunch of streams, streams, ooh, look at that nice water and everything, but you trip over rocks that are loose, and you slip and and twist your ankle in a hole, and and you got to fight the current. So streams and rivers, yeah, okie dokie, but get out in one and try to just try to walk, let alone pull a big old giant canoe with a bunch of stuff in it. So, but anyway, so yes, sir. So my point is, no matter what they did, it was tough.
It was
tough. It ain't like I'm gonna put on a day pack and walk down this trail for overnight and then come home.
That's exactly right. So these guys, and they had horses, they had canoes, but still, if you don't have a path for your horse to walk on or something, it's still going to take you a while. That's what it boils down to. So here we go. He got in with the fur company and started trapping furs and got to learn everything out there and met with the Indians and fought the Indians. And we're going to tell some stories about some of the things he did here in a minute. But what happened? Some of his big things. Well, he the first overland American to go to California from the east in 1826 and 27. Smith became the first American to lead an overland expedition from the Rocky Mountains to California, navigating through the Mojave Desert and later crossing the Sierra Nevada and the Great Basin. No other American had ever done this. And when he got to California, well, he found that the Spanish were there and they told him to go home. I'm serious. They did. They said, we're not going to kill you or put you in prison, but you need to go home the way you came. Now get. So that was kind of the. He did get on a boat, and I guess he took a boat and got out of there instead, though. But it's just the point that, he made it there first. He found an overland route through the Sierra Nevadas and the Great Basin, and that was the route because he made maps and described his travels, and that's how he became famous, is because that's the route that people or other people who wanted to go west took. So Smith was a pioneer autographer, meaning he met cartographer. Yes, I just couldn't get it out of my mouth. His explorations that he documented in detailed journals mapped enormous portions of the Rockies, Utah, Nevada, California, and Oregon, decades before official government expeditions. Historians say half of the West was first described by Smith and his party. He was also the first to get to the big giant redwoods too. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
He also served just like who was that guy? Survived the grizzly bear attack. That movie. I'm trying to think of that guy's name now. Just on the tip of my tongue.
Grizzly Adams?
No, the guy we talked about him the other week. That movie, Revenant. And I'm trying to think of the guy's name. It's on the tip of my tongue. He was another mountain man. He got mauled by a bear. Oh, somebody must know this. Come on. Who was it? What movie was The Revenant about with the guy? What was the guy's name? Not the guy who played him, but it's on the tip of my tongue. You notice when you got that and you just I know the guy, and then I just talked about him 2 minutes before the show.
Yeah, welcome to old age.
Yeah, it's old age catching up with me. Gosh darn. Not Johnson. No, it wasn't him.
That. Oh well.
No, it's gonna make me look it up. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to look it up because I can't remember what the guy's name is. Anyway, I went to the site. It was buried, and we talked about it on the last show, and I can't remember what I talked about. Boy, am I bad.
Oh yeah, that's right, you did.
And I threw out my notes for that show too.
Never do that. Oh,
yeah,
never.
I started over for another show. Yeah, well, I threw those notes out. Anyway, yes, I know. Oh, Hugh Glass, yes. So at about the same time, Hugh Glass, thank you very much. Hugh Glass, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. It was yes, thank you, Crystal Shaman, thank you, Lucky Stone, and thank you everybody who's in chat. Thank you for coming, Chloe, Scotty Boy, Sunset Dreamer. Thank you all for being here tonight. If I missed anybody, Elderberry, Joanne Dancing Gypsies in the house. Thank you. And Susie Q, haven't seen you in a while. Susie Q, thank you for joining us tonight, hearing this great story tonight. Yeah, Scotty Boy's missed the last few shows. Shame on you. Anyway, back to our thing. Well, Jed he was attacked by a grizzly bear too, believe it or not. He about the same time as Hugh Glass, and Hugh Glass got a little more famous for it, because they made a movie about it. But there's a story, and I'm going to tell that in a little bit, about Jedediah Smith here getting attacked by a grizzly bear. He fared a little bit better than Hugh Glass did, though. That's the only thing. His scalp and his ear were torn loose. He calmly asked his companions to sew it back on, showing his immense pain and tolerance and composure. Can you imagine getting your ear and your scalp ripped off, and you look at your buddies and say, "Hey, this ain't gonna work. Hey, somebody grab a needle and thread and sew it back on me. Yeah, put the ear over here. Make sure you get it straight."
Yeah, and their needles were like pieces of bone.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean,
it wasn't like they had tiny little Tobin needles, They were huge. Think about, they sewed up his head like a pair of moccasins, okay?
Yep.
Just think about that, because that's
none
what
of them
they had. And
they weren't doctors, so it was like, "Oh, buddy, I sewed my moccasins up. I can sew your ear back on. Just give me a minute." Oh,
that's right.
I hope that don't hurt. Here, drink some whiskey and bite this stick, Anyway,
they wouldn't have enough whiskey for me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So like I said, that stuff is just crazy. These guys, apparently he grew his hair long later on in life. He grew his hair long and he did a comb over. Nah, I'm not kidding either. He grew a beard and combed his hair over the big scar on his head. He survived multiple ambushes. Smith had numerous run-ins with the natives while he was trapping the beaver and stuff in their country and taking it and becoming wealthy. He survived massacres, ambushes, and starvation from the Mohave, the Ute, the Comanche lands, and he often narrowly escaped death. I was reading up on some of the stories, and man, the one he was out hunting and he came back, and the Indians had raided the camp and they were killing all his fellow trappers. And calmly he wrote about it, and he said, "I seen everybody getting killed, and I headed off to the east or west, I can't remember, to the river, figuring that was my best escape." I'm thinking, dude, you are really cutting it close there. If he would have been in camp, he would have been killed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Say, "Hey guys, I'm going to take a dump," and off he goes. And when he comes back,
yeah. We're gonna do Jeremiah Johnson, or did we do Jeremiah? We did Jeremiah Johnson. We did last week, and he was the liver eater. So if you want to know about the Jeremiah Johnson character, you got to go back to last week's show and watch that. We talked about, he lived a long time, so we even got real pictures of him. He was quite the character, lived till a very old age.
Yeah, and actually it was the week before because we were absent last week. So
well, at least the last show anyway.
The last show, yes, sir.
176. Go there and you'll see all about Jeremiah Johnson. Anyway, he had deep faith and discipline. Old Jed was known for his strict moral code and Christian devotion. He abstained from alcohol, profanity, and womanizing. Unlike most trappers of his day, he read his Bible regularly, even in the wilderness. Well, and it's it's just kind of amazing because he was going to those rendezvous, where they would get all the trappers and the Indians together, and they would play games and drink and trade and do all that whooping and hollering to get that out of their system once a year. And he abstained from drinking and womanizing. So you can imagine he was probably the guy over in the corner reading his Bible saying, "God says not to do." They're all going, "Prude." Anyway, well,
And
he
great
kept on.
spirit says to dance.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he kept on going, into the west, and till he, out here in the wilderness, of course, and he died on May 27th, 1831, at the age of 32 years old, near Cimarron Creek, modern day Kansas. While scouting ahead of a trade caravan along the Santa Fe Trail, Smith encountered a band of Comanche warriors. He was killed in an ambush. His body never recovered. His death went largely unnoticed at the time, but his journals and maps would become national treasures. Now, I want to tell you the story about his death because that is kind of a cool story in itself, as I read. He went up there. There was him and his group were out trapping or exploring or whatever they were doing, and a group of Comanche warriors came up, and he wanted to go and try to say he was friendly. And so he was trying to make sign language with them, in the Indian ways, friend, he's trying to come up there, be friends. And the chief was there and a bunch of his warriors, and he rode up, and one of the, and things didn't quite go so well at that point. They didn't want to be friends. They seen him as a white man trapper taking their stuff. And one of them just said, screw it, and they shot him. And it didn't kill him, but probably wounded him gravely bad. But being the guy he was, he lowered his rifle and he shot. Now, remember, they got black powder guns at this time. He shot and killed the chief, blew him right off of his horse, shot him in the chest, killed him dead right there. At that point, the warriors, started shooting at him, and he pulled out his revolvers, or not his revolvers, his pistols. I'm thinking of cowboy days, but he pulled out his pistols and killed two more guys. Remember, black powder, you only get one shot.
That's not true. There are black powder revolvers.
Oh, okay.
And
well,
you could get at least 4 shots out of some of those. Now, I don't, by that time, he may have had a black powder revolver, so that he may have very well have had more than one shot. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Maybe. I don't know. Didn't tell in the story, so I don't know exactly,
right.
It said I remember it said pistols.
Right. Well, there were, a lot of times back in the day, like the Pirates of the Caribbean or the Caribbean, they had one shot musket. So, but to the point though, they really did have multiple shot revolvers because the Navy used them.
Yeah. And at this point, he could or could have not had those. I don't know. I can't say either way. I wasn't there. And, but what happened is he shot 2 more warriors, as the story goes. He shot 2 more warriors. The rest of the warriors either threw their lancers or shot them with arrows, or him with arrows. He fell off his horse, and he, he was dead, or they left him. But the one thing they did was, because he was great, because he killed the chief and he killed a couple warriors and he fought and came and did all that stuff. They considered him a brave warrior, so they didn't scalp him or mutilate his body. Well, that was one of the things that it said in the story, is that they considered him, they gave him a burial as the same as they would a chief. So they showed him respect the same as they did the chief when they buried him.
Sir, I'm in the back. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How do they know all this?
I think
I know you listen. Hang on, I'm playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm listening to the story, and it's like, wow, and they treated him well. But at the beginning of your story, you said, and they never found his body.
No, I never said they didn't find his body. it says he was killed. Oh yeah, it does. His body never recovered. His death was
Yeah,
March.
that's but
Hmm.
so they knew the story, but I mean, and if they buried him, okay, I mean, all that's great, but then how did the story get out? And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm gonna.
I'm just that crazy kid in the back who's going, wait a minute. So if he was dead, he couldn't tell the story. And if the Indians buried him someplace in honor, but so then how did somebody know that he was buried in honor? And because how did they know that he wasn't mutilated? They never recovered his body. So where's the evidence? It's now it becomes just, to me, this just becomes a made up story.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just going by what I was reading and and the
Well,
story.
I
So
understand, but I mean, and listening to it, it's like it's really good, and that might be what actually happened. But if you got to stop and do a little forensic pathology here, it's like, wait a minute, how
no,
do
no,
how do they know all these details? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a bad person to
no, no,
interrupt
no,
that,
no. But
but
that's a good question. Like it says, I do remember. Um, like I said, I'm trying to go with the story. I should have probably took better notes on that, but the the story was that he this is how he got killed by the Comanche, and
right,
which
I
is
don't doubt
better than
that.
saying he got killed by the Comanche. Well, how did he get killed by the Comanche? There's got to be a little bit more to it than that, and then but I tend to believe that he probably would have fired, and I want to I remember him telling what chief they killed, but I can't remember the name of him.
See, let me offer an answer to my question.
Yes,
You said that he was traveling across the plains there with his company of friends.
yeah, it's probably his trappers.
So and it's very possible that the events were witnessed,
Could
like
be.
he did. He came back, from doing business, and all of his buddies were being killed in the camp. So he stayed back like a smart man and had to watch it. But so it could be that one of his comrades from the company that he was traveling with, observed some of these things, and in that that's how the story is told. Okay, so I'm trying to answer my own question, but I think that's he wasn't by himself. In other words, that's my point.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm sure there's lots of stories out there. Okay, so I Googled it, and this is the best I could come up with. It says later that day, as the caravan rode, he was okay. Wait. Let's go back a little bit. On May 27th, 1831, while traveling across a harsh and dry stretch of land near the Cimarron River, which is in Kansas, the caravan, he was leading a caravan, ran dangerously low on water. The party became anxious, and Jedediah, always a leader and a risk taker, volunteered to ride ahead alone in search of water. Despite warnings of hostile Comanche nearby, he rode out into the arid plains with his rifle and pistols. See, that's the pistols part, and a firm faith in God. Oh boy. Later that day, as the caravan slowly made its way across the landscape, the men saw a group of Comanche riders approaching, hostile and armed. A brief skirmish broke out, and then the men prepared for the worst. When they later discovered Jedediah's rifle and bloodied gear, they knew the worst had come. He had ridden directly into the Comanche party and was killed in the encounter. The reports say he was shot with arrows. He says he must have tried to fight, but he was overwhelmed, and no body was ever found. So anyway, like I said, maybe there's a different story out there. Maybe somebody made
No,
one
that's
up, but
not what I mean. But see, that right there is my answer. It was because he went out to meet them and was, and then they came up afterwards.
oh
But
yeah, yeah,
see, again, they said, his body was full of arrows, but the body was never found. See, that's an assumption, That's a ooh, and probably his body was covered with arrows because they didn't have gun. You know, they didn't have
Yeah,
rifles.
how is it? Yeah, that
So,
doesn't. Yeah, you're right. How is his body? Some reports say he was shot with arrows. Others say he may have tried to fight, but it was overwhelmed, and nobody was ever found. Well, see, so now you got conflicting reports. If you didn't find a body, then how do you know he shot with arrows?
and how they know that he fought to the end, and how do they know that he killed the chief? I mean,
So then here's the next thing is, just like Custer's Last Stand, you have the there was no white man left to tell the tale because they killed them all, right? So then you have the white men who made up a story of how it went, and then you have the Indians who were actually there, and then they told the story later on. You know what I'm saying? So maybe the other version that I'm talking about was told by the natives that were there.
right. That's why there were conflicting stories. And so, and an Indian would say, oh, yeah, he was full of arrows, buddy, but he was so brave. He fought to the end. So, you could get that from a native rather than a white man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Is just like Custer's Last Stand. What white man was left to record the events? None. Zero. Right? So how do we know it actually happened? We only know by the aftermath when somebody came around and said, look at all the dead bodies, and here's all, well, we'll just make up a story of what happened. And then you have the Indians version, what actually really happened.
That's right.
So now you got two stories, and if you've read those stories before, they're similar, but they do sound different. Some say the Indians were saying that the white men went crazy. Remember, we did that show. The Indians said the white men went crazy and shot each other, and the white man story said they went out in a blaze of glory, fighting to the bitter end. And so, who was right? I mean, I guess the recorders of history didn't want to say, yeah, the Indians must have got close and they killed each other, because they didn't want to get scalped and, ripped apart and, while they were still living and tortured, because I'm sure that's what the Indians would have done. Remember, the women would go out there and they would stab them and they would beat them and they would cut their tongues out and chop their fingers off and torture them all they possibly could. But, so anyway, so that's kind of, I don't want to talk about all the bad stuff people might say, oh, yeah, Jesus Christ.
Well, but anyway, about, how are the stories told? So it's like, he already had a legend started about him. He had already made, apparently, a decent amount of money with the beaver pelts. And so somebody who was telling the story wanted to make sure that, like Butch and Sundance, that he went out in a blaze of glory.
Exactly.
He didn't fall off his horse and hit his head, and the Indians laughed at him and rode off. No, that could have been what happened, but no, they sent him out with the story with a blaze of glory, according to his stature, if you will.
Yeah.
His oratory. I could tell a good story, y'all. But anyway, I'm sorry.
No, I agree. And like I said, I searched almost every book I have for Jedediah Smith story from the 1800s, but I could not find one, which is kind of sad. But, I found Hugh Glass, and I found this guy and Jim Bridger and, all these others, but no Jedediah Smith. I'm going to have to keep looking.
Well, no, I think that's because of, the era. It was before 1850, and things were a lot different before 1850. Things were, the industrial age was just starting to get going in the Americas after the war and stuff. And so, and things were changing. The boonies weren't quite as boony anymore because they started having better rifles and better equipment and things like that due to the industrial age. So, but anyway.
Well, like I said, it's I'm gonna keep looking and searching for an old Jedediah Smith book. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up to see actually, some of the real story, because I keep telling you, when you're reading this modern day literature on these people, they just give you the frosting. They never give you the good. I'm reading a book right now about trappers, and it's written by a trapper back in the early 1800s, and man, it's more real than anything the internet will give you. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and the way they wrote about things.
Yes.
I mean, they brought you right into the situation. It was a cold, frosty morning, and there was a den that hung over the stream.
Yep.
And they were getting ready, and there was a smoke from the fire, and they set up this scenario, and it's like, and then the and then the arrows started whizzing by our, and then there was gunfire, and you go, holy crap. And all of a sudden,
not just gunfire, but smoke clouds filled the air as gun fire came, and we could smell the sulfur from the the powder, because it was so close to our us, and if when the moonlight was shining bright, we could see the whites of their eyes, in the bushes, kind of thing, which really paints a great picture, in your mind. See, that's what I think we've lost a lot of. That's why I enjoy those older books so much, because
there was something about how they worded things that sucked you right in. I mean, it was great, and they weren't necessarily writers. They were just storytellers. They were retelling events as they saw them, and that is the story they told. But in doing so, they hit all the highlights of what the air was like and what the moon was like or whatever, instead of just saying, "Oh, the Indians attacked us and we fought back,"
Yeah. So a little play on Scotty Boy's thing. He says, "I grabbed Betty Lou and headed for the wagon." No, it's not like that. I smelled the smoke from the cannon fire, and I grabbed Betty Lou's hand, and it was sweaty and wet, and she was nervous, and I was brave and true as she smiled at me softly, knowing that I was her hero. And as we exited out the door and to the wagon, her pretty little feet dangling as I carried her off and threw her up onto the wagon, and fast and steady as the wind was blowing. You know what I mean? Now,
and that's tiny little feet she had tripped in the mud, and yep.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, but that's how those books were written, and it really gets you in there. It really paints that picture. You don't need a TV set. You just, you can read the words and go, oh my gosh, you know how they were feeling, and the drama and the passion, or the area that they describe everything from the dirt, the red clay stuck to her feet as I threw her on the wagon, and we whisked out of there as the arrows whizzed by us like stars, shooting stars from the sky, narrowly missing us, and bullets hitting the wagon, shaking it as the horses ran at full speed, with the sweat pouring down their manes, and the breath from their nostrils, blowing in the wind, kind of thing. Who knows? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Very explanatory, and it gets you all pumped up, like, wow, the horses were running fast. They were all sweaty already, and the clay was red, and it was stuck to her feet, and da 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 da. Well, you really got a good picture painted.
And let me interject. The thing like you just did, you Googled it, right? And so here is this story without any of that, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's just this. He rode in there, a bunch of Indians, arrows. He's dead.
That's right. Just the frosting on the cake. None of the cake. Just
um, in reading and the other stories, especially like you love a book. It's you got to sit down and open the book, which therein it lies in that now you intend to become enthralled by the book you're fixing to read. So your brain, all I'm helping you out here, but the brain goes into a setting that now I'm going to read a story about, the mountain men. So your body is ready, but when you click on a thing on the internet and you go, ooh, mountain man, yeah, okay, well, Jedediah, yeah, you don't get any of the what it was really like. So even though the internet's good, get a good book and sit down and allow yourself to become the story,
Yep.
because that's what the book will do. Ain't that right for you?
That's right. That's absolutely it. That's why I enjoy those old stories so much. Anyway, let's get back, and we're going to read a little bit of the frosting side of Jedediah's. Uh,
And see, and it's nice to know about these gentlemen, honestly, and that they haven't been written out of history. But if you really want to know, then try to find a book or something that really tells the story, and and immerse yourself in. Because these days, folks say, "Oh yeah, they were pioneers," and "Oh yeah, they were this or that," and people go to Renaissance fairs and all that because they want to feel like what it was like to be back in the medieval days. Well, honey, just be a Daniel Boone for a minute, in the wilds of, the Carolinas back in the day. And then Jedediah out there, 3,000 miles away from Daniel Boone kind of thing. And he's in the Rocky Mountains doing the same thing,
yep.
And so it's like, holy mackerel, Andy. But until you sit and I don't know, grasp it, you have to allow yourself, I'm looking for a word. You have to immerse yourself into the story to really get the full benefit of it. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll shut up.
Okay. We're going to do the frosting version of the mauled bear thing. So this is the bear attack of 1823. About within a few months of the same time where Hugh Glass had gotten attacked by a bear too. How kind of crazy is that? And of course, both of these guys were trappers. They were both tough as nails. But Jedediah Smith, at this point, he was only like 23 or 24 years old. Can you imagine being attacked by a bear at that age? And, he only lived less than 10 years later. But anyway, he took his life in his hands a lot. Anyway, in the spring of 1823, when Jedediah Smith joined General William Ashley's fur trapping expedition up the Missouri River near the fork of the Grand River, which is a modern-day South Dakota, Smith separated from his group to scout ahead. The land was Lakota Sioux territory, vast grasslands, scattered timber, and lurking danger. While moving silently through the brush, Smith startled a massive grizzly bear. The beast rose up on two legs and came down on him with crushing force. It slashed open his side, broke several ribs, and tore off his scalp, including his ear, leaving it hanging by a shred of skin. His companions rushed in and shot the bear, but the damage was done. Bleeding and barely able to stand, Smith, known for his calm under pressure, uttered no cry. Instead, he asked a friend, Jim Clayman, to do something unthinkable. Sew it back on. With nothing more than a needle, thread, and frontier grit, Clayman stitched Jedediah's scalp and ear back into place. Smith refused whiskey or complaint. Boy, he wouldn't even take whiskey for that? Holy cow. Within days.
Complaint now. That means he didn't cry out or cuss nor complaint. So he was quiet about the whole thing. Boy, that made of steel.
Yeah, made of steel. Talk about a Superman. Oh, they don't make them like that no more. Within days, he was back listen to that. Within days, he was back in the saddle, resuming the expedition. This moment sealed his legend as a man of unbreakable will and frontier faith. Now, the Lakota Sioux, they were dominant of the plains, known for their horsemanship and fierce defense of Dakota territory. We talked about them before. Though Smith's bear attack didn't involve direct conflict with the Lakota's expansion influence of the 1820s, many made the region one of the uneasy passages for trappers and scouts. Smith's survival in their lands without confrontation was rare. So he made it out of there with getting killed by Indians too. So anyway, let's go on to some other
or even having a conflict.
Yeah, that's wow.
I mean, he got by, like they might have been on the other side of the mountain, but he got by without even a shot fired by either side. So
no, he had conflicts, but he didn't get conflicts with them at that moment, I guess. But anyway,
that's what I mean. At that moment, they stuck by. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, getting your scalp ripped off by a bear, that's probably all the conflict you need.
Yeah, they probably said, that'd be too easy.
If that was me, I'd have been like, I got my scalp ripped off, my ear ripped off. You know what? I'm done. I'm going home. I quit. Not him. In 1826, we're going to talk about 1826 to 1827, the Mojave Crossing and the Desert Death March. How about that one? In 1826, Smith left the Rocky Mountains, determined to chart an overland route to California. I think I talked about this a little earlier. Something no American had yet accomplished. With a small group of men and 2 Mojave guides, he descended the Colorado Plateau into today's Arizona and into the Mojave tribal lands. The Mojave initially welcomed Smith. They were generous with food and water and even advised him on the desert path west. Smith noted their hospitality in his journals, calling them kind if cautious. He promised to return peacefully. When he did return 6 months later, though, everything changed. This time, Smith brought 18 men, 2 women, and numerous horses. The Mojave elders saw the large group as a threat, perhaps a military force. Tensions simmered until at the river crossing, the Mojave warriors ambushed them, killing 10 of Smith's party in a sudden, brutal attack. Wow, he came with 18 and left with 8. He just luckily escaped. Smith and the survivors fled into the Mojave Desert with little food, no map, enemy territory behind them. They walked hundreds of miles, often living on horse flesh and drinking brackish water, until they staggered into the Mission lands of California. He became the first American to reach California from the east, entirely overland. Now, who are these Mojave people? The Mojave were desert-dwelling people who lived
Hang on. I got to correct you. It's Mojave.
Mojave. Okay.
Yes, it's the Mojave Desert. Ever heard that before?
Yeah, the Mojave. Mojave.
Yeah,
Okay.
So the Mojave Desert is from the Mojave Indians. Okay. No offense, but I had to stop.
That's why I got you as a great wise man on here, so I cannot screw up.
Well, not screw up anymore.
There you go. Hey, I'm learning from the best. The Mojave.
It's Mojave.
Mojave. Okay. Yeah, I guess that does make sense now. I'm really looking at it. The Mojave were desert-dwelling people who lived along the Colorado River. They were skilled in river farming and intertribal diplomacy, but deeply protected in their land. The Mojave initial aid to Smith followed their culture of hospitality, but his return with a large group without tribal negotiation crossed the line. So basically, hey, you're just one guy. We ain't worried about you, but you brought a whole bunch of them, and we don't like that. It's just too many. We don't like neighbors, put it that way. Okay, let's go. He had another one. The Ute ambush of the mountains of Utah. I wonder why Utah got its name. The Ute Indians, Utah. Oh, okay, that makes sense, doesn't it? By 1824, Jedediah Smith, remember he's about 24, 25 years old. Jedediah Smith had already become known as for finding impossible routes That summer, his party was deep into Ute territory, an unforgiving landscape of alpine passes, river valleys, and rolling red rock basins. And if you don't know what that is, it looks like that, you know. It is steep rock. Utah is full of rocky mountains, man, it is. Smith's group came upon a band of Ute hunters near the Green River. The meeting was cordial at first. Then they exchanged goods, shared a fire, and smoked peace pipes. Sounds all good, doesn't it? The Utes offered dried meat and roots, and the trappers gave small tools and beads. They probably were jealous. But that night, everything changed. While the men slept, a group of the young Ute warriors returned to the camp, this time not to trade. Under the moonlight, they attacked. 2 trappers were killed immediately. Smith, always cautious, had slept with his rifle under his blanket. He leapt up, firing into the darkness, shouting to rally his remaining men. Great. With limited ammunition and no time to bury the dead, they retreated into the high mountain passes, where they took shelter in a shallow cave. Now it's called then the snow fell, food ran low, and they survived on what little jerky they had, and the melted snow, used melted snow for water. After the 3 tense days, they descended onto a hidden trail and eventually reconnected with trappers near the Salt Lake Basin. Okay, so anyway, I guess that cave, as I did my research, the cave is still there, but now it is underwater somehow. I don't know, but I don't have a picture of it. Sorry. Who are the Utes? The Utes were known as the people of the mountains, occupying large parts of Utah and Colorado. And unlike the Plains tribes, their survival depended on the seasonal migration, hunting, and mountain trading. They had complex relations with trappers, sometimes allies and sometimes ambushers, as you can see by the story. Their attacks were often acts of vengeance for territory, incursions, or broken taboos. How about that? So, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking of the Utes and the Skinwalker Ranch, you know.
Yeah.
And so if you've ever seen that, and then you can guess what? That's the territory and the terrain they were moving through, because that's what Utah looks like now, you know. So those are the kinds of things they had to contend with. So it wasn't just an easy journey, you know. Watching Skinwalker Ranching out there, you know, you everything looks fine, and then all of a sudden there's a gully, and then it's washed out, but it looks nice and flat and everything, you know. But when you get there, there's all kinds of stuff you got to cross or do or whatever. It ain't just this nice flat trip that's a little bumpy. So seeing some of these current TV shows and things, the first thing I do is go backwards, like these stories that we've been talking about, and say, good golly molly, that's what it looks like now? Holy mackerel. Trying to get a wagon train across through there? Are you nuts? So somebody that found a good trail was worth his weight in gold.
Well, yeah, that's why he was famous, is because he found some of those mountain passes, you know, and he carved the way. He made the maps. But
my point is, it wasn't that he knew about the mountains. He also knew about the nuances of the terrain. That's where I was trying to get. You know, he's like, he could get you over to the river, but don't go that way. There's a big mud hole. We're going to slide around over here. He knew how to get there with least amount of difficulty. He was good at what he did. I'm trying to praise the man. He was good at what he did. He just didn't find the mountain pass. He figured out how to get to the mountain pass.
Yeah.
And because that's a struggle right there, you know.
Yeah, but you can see by some of his travels here, he traveled all over. He was in all those states. Here's the Mojave River. He went up there. There's parks that are named after him, like even in the big redwoods and stuff. Here's some of his travels, and dates on when he was there. Here's the rendezvous in the mountains and the Great Salt Lake right here, which was actually bigger back in his day. It's kind of dried up a little bit now. Like I said, this is a big mountain region. You got to be tough to be in the mountains. I don't care if there's Indians or bears or not. And even if there was nothing, it would still be tough. Here's
Now
Rock.
hold that still a minute, that map, and zoom in a little bit if you can. But you see those rough spots, those raised parts on the map. Those are all mountains, and different elevations. So you got a trail that's going through there, but look at all them mountains right around you, right beside you, and so but to the right there, you could see where there was a large flat area, but even that would have been difficult, to pick a good trail through all that mess, through the rocks and the gullies and all that. So, he was good at what he did. Absolutely.
He like getting on the interstate, just driving down the highway.
No, but when he was done, though, the trails and things that he blazed became the interstates. So he was like the bulldozer, bulldozing the way the stuff to build the interstate. So he was that first guy.
That's right. He was the first guy to get out there and say, here, go down, 3 mountains down, and then there's a pass going through there. And I mean, that saves people a lot of time if you just know where to go, because if you go there and you see this giant mountain in front of you, do you go to the right or do you go to the left? Because if you go to the right and there's another mountain, then you got to go again and again and again until you find something. He already found it.
There's a story that was like back in the 1840s where the wagon trains, and I might be wrong with this, but like followed the Chisholm Trail. No, that was up and down. Anyway, followed a wagon train west, and it would get towards the Rockies, and then there was the Johnson cutoff, and then there was this other way. And then some of them, everybody argued, no, we're going to go this way. It's easier. No, we heard that was bad. And they would split up. And some of the wagon trains were never heard of again. So, that kind of thing happened all the time. So knowing the best way was the key.
Well, that's what happened with the Donner Party. And I know we haven't talked about the Donner Party much, but they were with a wagon train, just like you said.
Oh, maybe that's the one. Okay.
Yeah, well, okay, so we'll just go with the Donner Party a little bit. And they seen these trails like you see through the mountains here on this picture, right? Now there was a west passageway to the north, and then there was one to the south. And they were all leaving, as you can see this map, they would all leave St. Louis, and then they would head out. Well, you could go, the northern route, which, was this way, and then the southern route, which took you through the Sierra Nevada mountains, right? That's where the Donners went. Well, there was this story that said, hey, if you go through the Sierra Nevada mountains, you'll save, several hundred miles, right? And when they said, hey, we're running, what happened is that the wagon train was running behind, and these people decided to take the southern route because they would save a bunch of time, and they didn't want to wait around on this side of the mountains till spring. And if they went the other way, they could make it through the mountains, make it through the pass, and be in California, and meet up with the other wagon train that was going the northern route, right? And as they went, they slowed down and they stopped and they took more breaks because, hey, we're saving all these miles. We're going so much faster. Now we can take a few extra days. And guess what? They got into the Sierra Nevada mountains and it snowed. And then it didn't stop and they couldn't travel. And then they stopped and they thought, well, we'll just wait it out. It'll stop snowing and we'll continue. And the next thing you know, it snowed more and more and more until they ran out of food. And so they ate their mules, and then they ate their shoes, and they, eventually ate their dead, and and then the rest of the story. But that's what happened to the Donner Party, is because they were just so close. They were like, one mountain over. If they would have just made it another, 50, 60 miles, they would have been able to go down the mountain and make it to California. But because they were running late and taking their time and arguing about which road and how much stuff, and they didn't want to unload their wagons, so they had to go even slower. That's why they ended up where they were at, because they didn't, push on, as you would say. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. And having been out there and been to the museum where the Donner Party was, it's astounding. And we had camped the night before, unbeknownst, up there, and it was like the 6th of July is when we were there, and there was still snow on the ground. Okay, yes. In the Sierras. And, yes. We left our campsite, picked up camp, and headed east, going into Reno. And so a couple of miles down the road, here's the Donner Pass. And it's, what? Stop in and see it. And then you travel east, going into Reno. And it's not very far, but when you go into Reno, it's amazing. You look up and down the mountain range, and it's literally, here's California. This is California over here in the dark, and you come out of California off the top of this mountain, and Reno's down here, and down the mountain you go, and there's Reno, Nevada. So they were literally had to haul all their gear up the side of and you just look all the way down, you can see the mountain range, because in front of you is nothing but desert. And so they had made it to the top of the mountain up there. And if they'd have just backed up 50 miles, they could have went down to Reno. I mean,
well, and that's the thing.
They
it took
didn't
them
know where they were, number one, and they had lost their scout who had gone ahead, number two, but they had chosen this other path and got snowed in.
Yes,
and
because
things like that happened all the time.
Because
somebody said this trail's better than that one.
Well, the other trail, from the papers that they read, said that trail was quicker, and but it didn't say, hey, you got to go through that pass before it snows or you won't make it. And what happened is they got through that desert, and it took them so long going through that desert. I think they had a broken wagon wheel and a few other things go wrong, and so it just took them a long time, and they were running out of water. And like I said, they didn't want to. And then when they got to that mountain, like you're saying, if they would have just been able to go another 50, 60 miles, they would have been going down the mountain, and they would have made it to California, and everything would have been great.
And the thing is that where they ended up, where the Donner Party thing is in, guess what, California. So technically they had already made it. Yeah. They just weren't in San Francisco or in one of those big towns. So until they reached one of those places, a town on a map, then they weren't in California, even though they actually were.
They were, but they didn't know it.
Right, exactly.
Anyhow. All right. Well, enough with that. We'll have to do the Donner Party one of these days to get the full story. But like I said, if they would have, what happened is their scout knew that it was only a little ways and they were running out of food. So he, went ahead to bring back help. But, the help on the other, by the time he got there, got the supplies together and went back, back in those days, you're talking a month or better. And that's the problem. After a month, then you got, 50 people or 60 people up there. I forget how many, maybe there was more than that, but they need food. And they ran
and not out. Only that, but when you're there and you see the cabins that were rebuilt, but in the same locations, and then you see where they cut the trees off.
Yep.
To use for firewood to stay warm. And the trees are cut off like 15 foot up because that's how deep the snow was. They were
Exactly.
literally, 20 feet of snow. It was amazing how much snow that fell that year. But
Oh,
so yeah,
but that's how.
anybody that went in and out, they had to climb on top of the snow, and they were falling in drifts and stuff. It was horrendous.
Well, that's exactly true. I went hiking in the mountains in Colorado one year, and had to use snowshoes. And we had one of these sticks. Yeah, we had walking sticks or whatever because with the snowshoes, like ski poles or something.
Yeah.
And the gal I was with, she had a stick, and we took that stick, and it was like a measuring stick or something, and she put it out to about 10 feet and stuck it all the way down into the snow.
Yep.
Never hit bottom. Never hit bottom. And I'm like, it was because I kept thinking, it doesn't seem that deep. She says, don't take your snowshoe off and try to walk because you'll just sink. And then, there you'll be stuck. You'll just be stuck. And I'm like, and then we had a dog with us. The dog's just running on the snow. But, so it was kind of tomfoolery there because I'm like, well, the dog's walking just fine. But a couple of times I tripped and, I flumped down in the snow, and then I realized that, she was right. I couldn't feel bottom, and I was like, oh man, it was kind of tough to get up. She says, just don't take off your snowshoes. Just don't take your snowshoes off. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you put your hand down to get up, and it just goes straight down, and you end up with your shoulder in the snow. It's really strange. So there are folks in lower elevations, up at the Adirondacks and stuff. Maybe they get some deep snow, but go out west in the Sierras, and that stuff it's twice as bad as anybody else has seen. So, and that was one of the things that anybody moving out there, they had they'd been in the snow, but not like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, it just blew my mind when I went out there. I learned a lot. Like I said, people go out and experience things. That's my suggestion.
Absolutely.
Go out, I can tell you all day long how 10 foot of snow is, but it gives a whole new meaning of walking on water. Like Lucky says, Lucky said, yes, I've been snowshoeing and fell 4 feet in just by being stupid. Yeah, because if you get off your snowshoes and said, oh, I got an itch in my sock, well, too bad, so sad. You put your foot down, you're going to sink up to your waist. And it's like, there's no bottom. There's no bottom. There's just no bottom. Yeah. Anyway, well, it's time for a story. Do I got the right one? Rainbow in the Autumn Leaves?
Yep. And let me clean my glasses here since I've seen you pull that up.
Yeah.
But
Scotty Boy
so
says he knows about the snow. They put markers on trees 20 feet up so people know where to go for the campers in the middle of winter. My thought is, if you're going out in the snow and it's 20 feet deep, what the hell are you doing out there camping? digging into the ground and having a ice house or what? I don't know.
Yeah, that's possible. But sometimes too, that somebody's camping might be at a slightly lower elevation, and having been there during the summertime during a rainstorm up in the Bitterroots, let me tell you, 1 minute the sky is all nice and shiny, and the next minute you're in a deluge. And so the same thing happened with snowstorms that would come up. They couldn't see over the mountains good. When you're up in the Sierras, trees are all around you and stuff. You don't really get a good glimpse off in the distance as to what's going on. That's right. So you'd be sitting there and looking up, and the sky is blue, and then the storm roll in. And next thing you know, you're literally up to your neck in snow. So, But anyway, go out and experience things, but be careful. But the only way to feel, these days people put on a helmet and a VR so they can feel what it's like to experience it. Go outside somewhere and feel like it to experience it, for goodness sakes. You
That's
know,
right.
take the same amount of mental acuity and go, I wonder what it was like 100 years ago around here, you know, versus I'm gonna put on a VR helmet and relive what it was like 100 years ago. What? Anyway,
Oh, yeah, you're so right. Yeah,
ain't it strange what times we
yeah,
live in? Boy,
that's
howdy. All right, so but um, are we ready to transition now?
right. We are ready. It's all yours. The show is
All
yours.
right,
You ready?
okay.
Huh?
Let me give me a coffee, everybody, and wait, I gotta switch screens. Hang on, I'm right with you. I'm queued up. I just had to switch to that one. Okay, so I'm still reading out of the Indian books, Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales, as told by Cyrus Macmillan in 1922. Now, I'm sure that he learned the stories earlier than that, but that's when the book was written. And so, for those old timers that have hung around, and I will pull cards here in a little bit, but I have pulled the deer card many times. I love pulling the deer card, and also turtle, but the deer card in particular. And I'm going to go ahead and read this story, but if you remember what the deer card is like, then as you listen to this story, think about it. That's all I got. That it's interesting, the correlations, and maybe we'll talk about it on the other end. Hang on. So, Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus Macmillan, 1922. Tonight's story is Rainbow and the Autumn Leaves. In olden days, long before the Indians came to Canada, all the animals talked and worked like men. Every year, after midsummer, they held a great council at which they were all present. But it happened once in the summer, before the council met, that they all wanted to go to the sky to see what the country up there was like. None of them could find a way to go. The oldest and wisest creature on all the earth was Turtle. One day he prayed to the thunder god to take him to the sky, and his prayer was soon answered. There was a great noise, as if the earth had been split asunder. And when the people next looked for Turtle, he was nowhere to be found. They searched everywhere without success. But that evening, when they looked upwards, they saw him in the sky, moving about like a black cloud. Turtle liked the sky so well that he decided to live there always and to send his descendants later to the earth. And the sky people agreed to keep him. They asked him, "Where do you want to dwell?" And he answered, "I should like to dwell in the black cloud, in which are the ponds and streams and lakes and springs of water, for I always dwelt near these places when I was young." So he was allowed to have his wish. But when the great council of the animals met on earth in the time of the harvest moon, he was always present. He came in the black cloud, but he always went back to the sky after the council was ended. And the other animals envied him his good fortune, and they wished that they could go with him. After a time, the animals were greatly distressed and angered by the rumors that a new race of creatures was coming from far over the ocean to inhabit their land. They talked it over very carefully, and they all thought how fortunate it would be if they could all go to the sky with Old Turtle and live like him, free from fear and trouble and care. But they were puzzled to know how to get there, for Turtle had never told any of them the way. One day, Deer, wandering about alone in the forest, as was his custom, came across Rainbow, who often built a path of many colors to the sky. And he said to Rainbow, "Carry me up to the sky, for I want to see Turtle." But Rainbow was afraid to do it, for he wished first to ask the thunder god for permission. And he put Deer off, and the game time said, "Come to me in the winter, when I stay for a time on the mountain near the lake. Then I will gladly carry you to the place where the turtle dwells." Throughout the long winter months, Deer looked longingly for Rainbow, but Rainbow did not come. Life was growing harder on the earth, and the animals were in terror of the new race that was soon to come to their land. And Deer was very timid and impatient. And at last, one day in the early summer, Rainbow came again, and Deer hastened to meet him. "Why were you false to me?" he asked. "I waited for you all winter long on the mountain by the lake, but you did not come as you promised. I want to go to the sky now, for I must see Turtle." Rainbow answered, "I cannot take you now, but some day, when there is a fog over the lake, I shall come back to drive it away. Come to me then, and I shall take you to the sky and to the place where Turtle dwells. This time I will not deceive you." Rainbow consulted the thunder god and received permission to do as Deer wished. Soon afterwards, the fog one day rolled in a thick bank across the lake, and Deer hurried to wait for Rainbow. Sure enough, Rainbow came down, and as he had promised to drive the fog away, he threw his arch of many colors from the lake to the blue hills far away, and the fog at once disappeared from the place. Then he said to Deer, who stood watching him, "Now I will keep my promise. Follow my many-colored path over the hills and the forests and the streams, and be not afraid, and you will soon reach Turtle's home in the sky." Deer did as he was told, and soon he reached the sky. Turtle was glad to see him, and Deer liked the country so well that he decided to stay forever. And he roamed over the sky everywhere, moving like the wind from place to place. When midsummer had passed and the harvest moon had come, and the great council again met together, Deer was absent for the first time in his life. The animals waited long for him to appear, for they needed his advice, but he did not come. They sent the birds out to find him. Black hawk and woodpecker and blue jay all sought him in the forest, but they could not find a trace of him. And then wolf and fox scoured the woods far and near, but they came back and reported that he could not be found anywhere. At last, Turtle arrived at the meeting of the great council, as was his custom, coming in his black cloud, in which were the ponds and lakes and streams and springs of water. And Bear said, "Deer is absent from the council meeting. Where is Deer? We cannot meet without him, for we need his advice." And Turtle replied, "Deer is in the sky. Have you not heard? Rainbow made a wonderful pathway for him of many varied colors, and by that he came to the sky. There he is now." And he pointed to a golden cloud scurrying across the sky overhead. Turtle advised that the animals should all go to the sky to live until they could be sure that the new race of creatures would bring them no harm. And he showed them the pathway that Rainbow had made, stretching from earth in wonderful colors. The animals all agreed at the great council to take Turtle's advice. But they were all very angry at Deer for leaving them without warning, for they thought that all the animals should either stay together faithfully on the earth or go all together to the sky. Bear showed the greatest anger and annoyance. Because of his great strength, he had no fear of the new race that was said soon to be coming, and he had always been inclined to look with scorn on Deer's timid and impatient ways. "Deer has forsaken us," he said. "He deserted us in the hour of our danger, and that is contrary to forest laws and to our code of defense." And he thought to himself, "I shall punish him for this when the time comes." In the late autumn, the time agreed upon came for the animals to leave the earth, and Rainbow again made his bright path for them to the sky. Bear was the first to go. He was the first to go up because he was the leader and because of his great weight. He wanted to test the strength of the bridge of the burning colors over which they had to pass. When he had almost reached the sky, he met Deer on the path, waiting to welcome the animals to their new home. Then he said to him in anger, "Why did you leave us without warning? The land of the turtle. Why did you desert the great council? Why did you not wait until all could come together? You are a traitor to your comrades, and you have been false to our faith." And Deer answered, also in anger, "Who are you to doubt me or my faith? None but the wolf may ask me why I came or question my fidelity. I will kill you for your insolence." Deer had grown very proud since he had gone to live in the sky, and he was no longer timid as he had been on the earth. His eyes flashed in his fury, and he arched his neck and lowered his antlered head and rushed madly at Bear to push him from the path. But Bear was not afraid, for he had often tested his strength with Deer upon the earth. His low, hoarse growls sounded all over the sky, and he prepared to fight. They came together with a shock. For a long time they battled, until the bridge of burning colors trembled and the heavens shook from the force of the conflict. The animals waiting by the lake at the end of the path looked up and saw the battle above them. They feared the results, for they wanted neither bear nor deer to die. And together they battled. So they sent Wolf up to the sky to put a stop to the contest. When Wolf reached the combatants, Bear was bleeding freely, for Deer with his antlers had pierced his neck and side. Deer, too, was bleeding, where Bear's strong claws had torn a great wound in his head. Wolf soon stopped the battle, and Bear and Deer went away to dress their wounds. Then the other animals went up to the sky over the rainbow's flaming path, and they decided to live in the sky and to send their descendants back to Earth when the new race of creatures should come. And they can still sometimes be seen, like clouds, hurrying across the sky in the shape they had on Earth. But the blood of bear and of deer dropped from them as they moved to the sky from the scene of their battle along the rainbow road. It fell freely upon the leaves beneath them. And when autumn comes in the North Country, the leaves take on again the bright and wondrous colors given to them by the blood of bear and deer when they fought on the rainbow path ages and ages ago. And bear and deer have never since been friends, and their descendants no longer dwell together in peace as they did in the olden days. The end. Now, how about that for a story?
That was good. Good.
And,
I like.
Yeah, there was a little bloodletting, but there wasn't any killing.
That's right. Now
No heads got lopped off, but there were no giants in the story. For better or worse.
Now I know where they get the colors. Next week is the passing of Glooskap. Oh my gosh, that's going to be a good one. Yeah. Okay.
And so, it's interesting, I'm shuffling cards. So, we read these stories and they're the retelling of the ancient stories, right? So this isn't just some Indian going, hey, we had this story about blah, blah, blah. No, he's telling him these ancient stories that this is what happened with Glooskap and so, but in these stories, there was a reason why the story was being told, and that was to tell about the autumn leaves and why they changed colors, and it was the promise of rainbow to come back every winter and touch his colors in the lake, and and they could go to the sky. So in a way, it's sort of I don't know what the word would be, that we too, if we do our righteousness, we can go meet at the lake and follow the rainbow sky. And no, it doesn't mean gay and all that kind of stuff. The rainbow sky is all of the colors of the world, not people's, but of everything in the world, all of the colors that Creator used to create and paint the world, is what the
Just
rainbow is.
Just
So,
think of all the colors that we could see if we could see the full spectrum.
oh man,
You know?
it would make a lot of people crazy. I mean, literally, because it would be too much for them to not necessarily comprehend, but it would be overwhelming to their senses.
Yep, it would. It would.
How about that? I don't know if we missed a show last week, didn't we?
Yep, we did.
So, a lot of people don't know that I had surgery on my right eye. I
Yep.
had cataract surgery, and something that it's very interesting, and you don't know till you get there, is that you undo the bandage and they come in and they say, okay, we're going to give you a test. All right, I don't know if I can pass or not. And she says, close your eyes. They turn on the lights in the room. And she says, open your left eye. Okay. Now, if you see the pages that are on that story, the color that it is, Robert, the story we just did, the color of the pages.
Oh, I already.
When I looked with my left eye, I was like, oh, that's normal. And then I opened up with my right eye after they had removed the cataract, and it was like, no, white is the page beside it, not the page itself. Oh my God.
It's kind of like this picture here I got behind me. It's all tan, and then I got the white shirt on.
Yeah, it's so drastic. And so tomorrow, 9:30 in the morning, I get to go have my left eye done, and that's the reason why I was wearing the sunglasses earlier, because things are so much brighter. No wonder they give you sunglasses, because it's beyond amazing. Doesn't hurt. Went to sleep right away. Woke up and said, "Wee!" So, but tomorrow at 9:30, I'm going to do it again. But it has given me the opportunity to look at things in two ways, right? And I bring this up in that because with the cards, sometimes you look at things and go, well, that's what Great Spirit wants. Well, maybe not. You might need to let them cards rest a little bit, or whatever, is going on. And you might just need to sit quietly for a day and let things go by to see how they settle out, and that's important. So, but anyway, I've got the cards going here.
Come on, everybody, get your guesses in for cards.
Yeah, I've already got two out. I won't tell you what, but
Lucky's got his in so far. He's saying we got turtle, frog, deer, beaver. He's got them. Anyway, I'm thinking I'm going with deer too. I'm going with deer. I'm going with skunk. I'm going with armadillo and frog. And I got to I'm picking an insect. I'm going with butterfly. How's that? There you go. But anyway, yep, that's what I'm going with. I'm going with deer. Yep, skunk. John Price has got bear, deer, rabbit, and fox and turtle. Rabbit, fox, and turtle. Bear, deer, rabbit, fox, and turtle.
Man, y'all are so far off tonight.
Everybody's got deer. Everybody's going with deer tonight.
And deer is not in the cards.
Oh, Joanne says she's going with a marsupial. Possum. No possum. Joanne.
No possum. Are you ready for this, y'all? This is
talk
about an interesting spread here. The first one out is lynx, which we've had before. Lynx holds secrets and is difficult to get to help you out or give answers. But anyway, the next one then is spider, which we've not had for a while. The next one up is lizard, which we've not had for a while. The next one up is eagle. Wait. Okay, the next one up is butterfly upside down, which in this
I got
spread,
butterfly.
which in and I had pulled the card when you said it, by the way. I almost put it back in the deck.
Didn't want to give me any credit, did you?
No, I was just like, you said it, and I was like thinking, and like, maybe I pulled the card because, nah, you got to keep it anyway. It comes to you, right? So anyway, but butterfly is upside down, which all the other ones are right side up. Now, the next one up, which I think is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is the fifth card, which is the number 1 card, is eagle. Now, another card that just sort of, I'm not sure, going to have to wait till I read these, but then this last one that kind of popped out is mountain lion. So all y'all with the turtle and deer and all that, boy howdy, this trail right here is nowhere near that one. So which is, I mean, usually y'all get some of them right, but this time around,
only one I guessed was butterfly. Lucky had a whole bunch of them: frog, turtle, deer, beaver. None of the above. Not even a dragon or a griffin or a unicorn. None of the above. Geez. Susie no. Joanne was marsupial now. Sibo says lynx is cool. Thunders around the wood. Party. Oh yeah, Susie, you got cougar. Yeah, lion, cougar, lion.
Yeah, mountain lion. Yeah, well, and lynx too. Yeah. Let's
lion,
see,
yeah.
cougar.
So Susie Q got one right. Good for you.
Cougar might be closer to lynx, and if mountain lion, I gotta wait till I do the cards. If mountain lion might have just fell out and I picked it up, kind of thing.
Yep.
But sometimes they fall out on purpose, you know. And interestingly enough, in the cards, lynx is number 18 and mountain lion's number 17, and they were at opposite ends of the deck when I shuffled and pulled them. So that in itself, like positioning, like, okay, I picked lynx first and then mountain lion had to bring up the rear. We'll see.
We'll
you see what I mean? We'll see. So
like he picked the right cards. He says, I picked the right cards. I blame Hawkeye for picking the wrong cards. That's the way to win.
No, what it is that my spirit, what, no offense, but my spirit guys were not listening to you tonight.
Well, there you go.
They had their own. So, but here we go with lynx. Right out the bat is secrets. Intriguing. Lynx, you know the secrets so very well. The dream time and the magic, but you'll never tell. May I learn to hold my tongue, observe like the Sphinx, powerful yet silent, the medicine of lynx. Powerful yet silent. It is said that if you want to find out a secret, ask lynx. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get them to talk. Lynx is the keeper of the secrets of lost magical systems and the occult knowledge. Let me read that one more time. Lynx is the keeper of the secrets of lost magical systems and occult knowledge. Lynx has the ability to move through time and space and to go into the great silence for unraveling any mystery. Lynx is not the guardian of secrets, but the knower of secrets. The problem lies in getting Lynx to instruct you. He or she would rather be off chasing a bird rather than telling you what you need to learn. Lynx medicine is a very specific type of clairvoyance. If this medicine is strong in you, you will get mental pictures concerning other people and events. The only way you can coax information about yourself out of a lynx medicine, in case you've forgotten where you hid your own treasure. If you go to a gypsy with lynx medicine, you should show your respect by paying with money after the reading. And if you go before a medicine man, you take cornmeal and tobacco and other things as a gift. Some medicine people believe that the Sphinx of ancient Egypt is not a lion, but a lynx. This lynx does not say much. With an enigmatic smile, the great cat watches over the sands. So lynx at the very beginning is the knower of secrets of what? That's what's fixing to come up, right? So the keeper and the knower of the secrets, all right? Which means that somehow, if lynx is the keeper and knower, when we go to lynx, it's because we want to know our old secrets, who we are, what we did, where we came from, you know, anything special about us, you know, individually and also as a group. But lynx is like individually, like, tell me what's going on. So the next one up is spider, and it's right up too, straight up. And spider is weaving. Now here's lynx secrets, and here's spider going to do some weaving. Ain't that interesting? Spider, weaving webs of delight. Weave me a peaceful world, carrying creation in your web, waiting to be unfurled. Spider wove the web that brought humans the first picture of the alphabet. The letters were part of the angles of her web. Dear, asked Spider. Now here's, y'all want a deer? Well, deer's in the story, but not in the cards. Ain't that interesting? So Deer asked Spider what she was weaving and why all the lines looked like symbols. Spider said, why, Deer, it is time for Earth's children to learn to make records of their progress in their own Earth walk. Now, here we are at this time, a lot of stuff going on in the world. And here Spider says, it is time for Earth's children to learn to make their own records. Pay attention, right? And Deer says, but they already have pictures. And Spider said, yeah, but Earth's children are growing more complex. Now, ain't that true? And their future generations will need to know more. Woo-hoo! Amen. Here we are, right? So it was that Spider wove the first primordial alphabet, as she had woven the dream of the world that had become manifest. She wove the dreams of the world that became manifest. Spider weaves the web of fate for those who get caught in her web and become her dinner. This is similar to humans who get caught in the web of illusion in the physical world and never see beyond the horizon into other dimensions. Now, ain't that true? So you get stuck in the web like getting stuck in the mud. And Spider is a female energy of the creative force that weaves the beautiful designs of life. Her web has hundreds of intricate patterns which catch the morning dew and reflect the universe. Spider brings a message of a different kind when she sees you becoming a bit too involved in the weaving of your life to notice an opportunity at the outside edge of your web. In other words, it's sort of like mouse. Mouse is always gets too much interested in about what's right in front of it and not about what's around it. Same thing here. The most important message from Spider is that you are an infinite being who will continue to weave the patterns of life and living throughout time. Do not fail to see the expansiveness of the eternal plan. Stick to the plan, brothers and sisters. Woo-hoo. Wow, that's interesting. Now, the next one up is number 36 is lizard. Lizard. The lizard. Let's see what. Okay. Lizard. Lizard is in the dream time, right? This is my fun story where lizard's under the rock, and it's scorching hot outside, and snake comes up to get under the rock, right? And lizard says, "Woo, you scared me, buddy." And snake, said, "Hey, listen here." He says, "How come you always get the good spots under the shade? I want to share this." And lizard looks at him and says, "Well, okay." And finally, lizard said, "Oh, snake, you are a silly serpent. Every time you come, you think I'm sleeping, but I'm not. I'm dreaming." I lost my spot. "Oh, I'm not sleeping, I'm dreaming." And snake wanted to know what the difference was. So lizard said, "Dreaming is going into the future. I go to where the future lives." Now here's links, secrets. Here's spider weaving the web. And here's the lizard saying, "I'm going to where the secrets are, to where the future is." Interesting path these cards are. And snake was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And lizard said, "Well, I dreamed that you would not eat me because you've got a full belly, so I can share my shade and not have to worry about you trying to eat me." And snake was like, "Well, you're right." And so lizard says, "Well, I dreamed that. That's the future. So I could see that you were full and you weren't going to eat." But anyway, so lizard medicine is the shadow side of reality where your dreams are reviewed before you decide to manifest them physically. What? Yeah, so this is where your dreams. So, I really want to do this. This is a really cool idea. Let me sit down here in my easy chair and think about it a minute. You have dreamed it. This is what you'd like. But now you're going to stop and you're going to look and go, Lizard is the medicine of dreamers, whether dreamers smoke you or dream you. Dreamers can always help you to see the shadow. This shadow can be your fears, your hopes, or the very thing you are resisting for future progress. But it is always following you around like an obedient dog. No matter where you go, you've always got a shadow, by the way. Even at nighttime, the stars will give you a shadow. So the lizard is the shadow side of things. All right. So lizard may be telling you to pay attention to your dreams and their symbols. So be careful, the dream time, and the web time. And now we've got butterfly upside down. Now, butterfly, as I remember, is about metamorphosis. You've got the different stages of how the butterfly evolves. Transformation. So lizard is like Stop, you got dream time, and now butterfly is in the transformational stage, but upside down. So let's see what we got. Butterfly that flutters in the morning light, you have known many forms before ere you took flight. The power that butterfly brings to us is akin to the air. It is the mind and the ability to know the mind or to change it. It is the art of transformation. So you got lizard that's thinking about it. You got the web from the spider, and you got links with secrets. And now you got butterfly with transformation. To use butterfly medicine, you must astutely observe your position. Astutely observe now your position in the cycle of self transformation. You've got the egg stage, the larva stage, the cocoon stage, and then you've got the birth stage where you come out as the butterfly. So in each one of those stages is a lesson. So now by asking yourself what stage you're in, you'll discover how butterfly is relating to you. Stay there. Where you are. So, but upside down, if butterfly reversed, your lesson is a simple one. There is a need for change in your life that you are not recognizing. Okay? So here are the cards out. Secrets tied up in the web, lizards waiting for the future to, manifest. And here's butterfly medicine that says there's a need for change. Ooh, there's the message. This could be a possible need for freedom, for a vacation, or maybe even a new job. You may believe that change is too difficult, and you may rule it out to preserve the comfort of your old habits. But in ruling out any possibility of change, you are saying that the courage of butterfly has been lost. In other words, butterfly went through all these changes to manifest into a butterfly, and now, it's like, whoops, butterfly drops to the ground dead. Because there is a totally different world outside the cocoon where the known realities of the inside chrysalis are no longer applicable. So, you're inside there, you're becoming that beautiful butterfly, and you don't know what's out there until you get out there. So, this new world demands that you use your newfound wings and fly. Now that's a powerful message right there. And number one card, last one up, I think, we'll see, is Eagle, number one. Eagle is spirit. Eagle, fly high and touch great spirit. Share your medicine. Touch me. Honor me so that I may know you too. Eagle medicine is the power of the Great Spirit. It is the power of the Great Spirit. The connection to the divine. So you got links with secrets. You've got the web. You've got the lizard with looking into the future. We got butterfly that's telling you get off your duff and do it. And now you got eagle coming in with spirit. It is the ability to live in the realm of spirit and yet remain connected and balanced within the realm of earth. So I've talked about this in a recent video, but that, you got to be able to do both. You got to be able to remember your core value of who you are spiritually and get along in this new world of stuff that's going on. So the feathers of eagle are considered to be the most sacred. If you pulled this symbol, eagle is reminding you to take heart and gather your courage, for the universe is presenting you with an opportunity to soar above the mundane levels of your own life. In learning to fiercely attack your personal fear of the unknown, the wings of your soul will be supported by the ever present breezes, which are the breath of the Great Spirit. I love this line. Let me read it again. In learning to fiercely attack your own personal fears of the unknown, well, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Well, what about Trump? What about the war? What about this? What about that? Face your own personal fears. The wings of your soul will be supported by the ever present breezes, which are the breath of the Great Spirit. But you got to have faith. And so let me look and see if Mountain Lion belongs in here. That sort of looks like the end, you know. Um, Eagle medicine is the gift we give ourselves to remind us of the freedom of the skies. Eagle asks you to give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to legalize freedom and to follow the joy of your heart desires. Freedom, huh? To follow the joy of your heart desires. Let me bring up Mountain Lion. Now I'm curious. That's pretty good. That's pretty good message right there. Mountain Lion is leadership. Oh, well, we got to throw in another. I guess this card does belong here. Mountain Lion can be a very difficult power totem. You could be blamed for things going wrong, or for always taking charge when others cannot. Mountain Lion medicine involves lessons on the use of power in leadership. It is the ability to lead without insisting that others follow. In other words, just do the right thing. It is the understanding that all beings are potential leaders in their own way. The use and abuse of power in a position of influence are part of this great cat's medicine. Mount, if Mountain Lion has come to you in dreams, it is time to stand on your convictions and lead yourself where your heart takes you. Well, that's sort of what Eagle just said. So I think this Mountain Lion card is coming in here to, give a little bit of follow up. In assuming the place of power that Mountain Lion affords, you must constantly be aware of keeping peace. However, you can never make everybody happy unless you lie to yourself or to others. Now, that line right there, what is going on right now in politics and stuff? Let me read that line again. However, you can never make everyone happy unless you lie to yourself or to others. What's going on now in politics? Folks are trying to do the right thing. Well, oh my God, Therefore, the first responsibility as leadership is to tell the truth, know it and live it. And your example will filter down to the tiniest cub in the pride of lions. Responsibility is no more than the ability to respond to any situation. Panic is not a part of this sacred medicine. Woo, boy, that's some strong medicine in them cards tonight. I'll tell you what. So, be your own leader. Get yourself out of the web. Make sure that you're not stuck. Make sure, like the upside down butterfly, don't ruin it. Get off your duff. And eagle, yeah, buddy, eagle's the medicine of all. And mountain lions like, yeah, you got to make sure that you got to maintain the peace. Those are some interesting cards tonight. Now, strange, you betcha, but um, where's my other? So, what you think? Was that a good set of cards?
That was a good set of cards. I like it. Well, we're going in some turmoil-ish times coming ahead. If you've been watching the news, what do you think the cards are pertaining to that? Because
absolutely,
we got the lynx and the mountain lion.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about, is that between Israel and Iran, between Ukraine and you can't make everybody happy, no matter and Trump's this and he's against MAGA and all that. Listen, the guy has said, I want peace. I want peace. I want to stop the killing. I want peace. He never said I want to blow everybody up. He said I want peace and no nukes. But to the point though that they will condemn him because you're breaking up MAGA and you can't in Israel and you can't make anybody happy. If anything, these cards are saying tonight is no matter what you do, you can't make everybody happy. Somebody's going to have to take be pissed about something. So that's a good message. But in the rest of the message is keep your silent strength for us. And for me, it's like, don't get caught up in this mess because you can't make everybody happy. You got to just sit and kind of be like a lizard, okay? Sit up underneath in the shadow and watch what the hell's going on, right? And then you can come out and go walking around. But so I think it's a clear message. So for all of us, don't get caught in the web. Ding, 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 ding. We've got secrets that we know, but the secrets, I'm getting hyper. The secrets are in our inner strength. We don't lose our spiritual being.
Right.
Dave is David Null, but my spirit is Hawkeye. I have to make sure that Hawkeye stays intact. Dave can get beat up and stuff, but Hawkeye's got to maintain. Hawkeye has got to continue to be for myself. I've got to be my own spiritual leader. I got to believe in myself. I've got to maintain the staff. Everything else is like, yeah, okay. So, but these cards relate to us individually. But with that said, it's a picture of what's going on around us. You can't make everybody, keep that in mind. You can't make everybody happy.
That's right.
So one side's going to, we should do this. And the other side, we got to do that. Oh, well, you did this. And you said that. Oh, shut up. Just sit down. Because here's the thing. Whatever Trump and the United States decide that they want to do, all right, keep this in mind. You and me are talking. We're making plans for tomorrow. And everything's groovy. The weather's fine. And then all of a sudden we go to sleep and a storm comes in. Did either one of us plan on the storm? No. Okay. So we got to deal with the storm. So that changes things. So now you want to take all the rain gear and I just want to take a couple of tarps, and you want to take a boat and I want to take skis and you want, so our division comes where we were together up until the storm came. And the storm is all these other people. And you don't know where lightning's going to strike. So is Iran going to shoot another thing at Israel? We don't know. Nobody knows but them. And some of them don't know. So the guys in Israel, who's going to know? So people are going, Trump's doing this and Trump's doing that. Listen, y'all. he don't know shit until after it happens, most of the time, because you never know who's on what side's going to push a button. Simple as that.
That's
You
right.
don't know. This guy might go, I think I'm going to push a button. Oh, hell with it. 3 of them. Bing, 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 whoosh. And the other guy might go, I don't want to push the button. But my point is, there are people on either side that have choices to make. And it's up to them to make those choices, whether it's a single person or a group of them. So this group of, Russian generals are pissed off at the Vlad. So they fire a bunch of rockets into Kiev, and Putin's sitting in Moscow going, what the hell did you guys just do?
Yeah.
What did you just do? And they're going, the hell with you, we decided amongst that kind of stuff goes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're trying to blame Putin for individual things. You're trying to blame, for goodness sakes. I mean, you could blame Trump for Schumer.
I know. Well, and that's the thing. They always got to have a scapegoat. So you got to have somebody to blame for all your troubles. All right. Oh, Susie Q's wanting to know if you're going to have a show. You gonna have a show after this?
Yeah, I got to get some coffee, and yeah, I think so. But my friend, these cards, keep up your personal strength, and you can't please everybody. Just keep that in mind, and just know for myself, I think that people want to say, oh, Trump has turned on MAGA. Listen, the man has been talking for the last 30 years about bringing peace to this world. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that he wants to kill anybody. So this thing about Trump wants war, stuff it. He don't want war. He wants to stop it. So, he's going to go up and he wants to stop it. Keep that in mind. People wanting to keep go over here and go over. They want to steal your mind. He has always spoken about peace. Always. And I don't think he's changed. So I feel confident in that. And as a patriot to the United States, I want to stay confident in my leader still has peace in his heart. Now, other people around the world are going to do stupid shit. And he's just going to have to try to finagle around whatever they do.
That's right.
Okay, so keep that in mind and keep the faith.
That's right. Well, with that, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. Join David in a little bit and get over on his channel there. Link is in the description below. If you don't know where to go, that kind of rhymes. Anyway, Witchy Moon's in the house. Thank you, Chloe. Chloe's looking forward to your show tonight. She says, I need you tonight. Thank you. Anyway, we're going to have a great show on Saturday with Lucky Stone, and Courtney from Stars of the Morning Light is going to be joining us for a co-host or for our special guest on Saturday night show. So tune in then as we talk more about the secret teachings with Manly P. Hall. We'll be doing some more on that and finding and gnosis, the knowing, the wisdom really is something that we talk about on this channel a lot. David, you know all about it. It's the knowing, the wisdom. That's what the old timers, the people with the secret knowledge, that's all it was they kept saying, you got to have wisdom and knowledge. Who cares about all the other stuff outside? It's what's in here and all the stuff that so you can make good decisions. And all the other stuff is crap. Material world versus the knowing world. You know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah, and one of the crazy things about people of today, and it was the people of then too. Oh, it's got to be more than that. No, what you need to do is it's the simplicity of it. It is in the knowing, the gnosis of it. But it's got to be more than that. It can't be that simple. Well, sit down on this rock and we'll think about it.
Well, and that's the thing. They had some great thinkers back then, but I can't think of many thinkers nowadays. Most people that we know nowadays are politicians. How many great thinkers can you name today?
Me.
Well, that's what I'm saying is there's very few and far between. That's why everybody loves you, because you're a thinker. You are a philosopher. There's not many, and they're not famous. Who's writing the philosopher books today? There's surely no Plato's or Socrates or anybody out there. And if you do know one of them, let me know, because I would sure be interested to realize who is our great thinkers of today. And don't say Bill Gates, because I don't think he's a thinker. He's just rich. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about thinkers, philosophers. Who's our greatest philosophers of the day? That's the question for y'all. Please let me know. But anyway, with that, everybody, have a great week. Enjoy it. Summer is right around the corner. Go out, grill out, have a good time, see your neighbors, smile, wave, be kind and friendly. This is a season for it. Remember, spread the love, spread the joy, and most of all, be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers. Peace.